The morning started just like any other day on Earth. The sun rose quietly over cities, people went about their daily routines, and no one could have guessed that the universe was about to change forever. It was a calm, peaceful morning, but that peace wouldn't last long. At first, it began with a strange light in the sky. It wasn't like an airplane or a satellite or even a shooting star. It was brighter, bigger, and it didn't move naturally. Some thought it was a comet. Others believed it was another rocket launch. But deep down, many felt something different, and a quiet, unsettling feeling that this light wasn't from Earth. Within hours, the world's communication channels were filled with one question: what is that in the sky? Then it happened. The light grew, spreading across the atmosphere like a burning scar in space. Suddenly, multiple flashes appeared, one after another, forming a long, shining line that curved across the horizon. It wasn't a meteor shower. It wasn't a natural event. It was something else entirely. News channels scrambled to broadcast the phenomenon live. The cameras zoomed in, and what they showed made millions of people around the world gasp in disbelief. They weren't stars. They were ships. Thousands of massive ships, dark, metallic, and perfectly aligned, emerged from the emptiness of space. Each one looked larger than entire cities. They floated silently above the clouds, casting long shadows over oceans and continents. The Galactic fleet had arrived. It was a sight beyond imagination. Their formation was so precise that it looked almost ceremonial, as if they were making a grand entrance. Their designs were not chaotic or messy. Every structure, every beam of light had a purpose. The surface of each ship glowed faintly with blue and gold lights, and strange symbols moved across their hulls like living patterns. Around the world, people reacted differently. Some screamed, others cried, but most stood frozen, staring at the sky. Fear spread quickly. Yet something strange followed. There was no chaos. Despite the scale of what was happening, the world didn't fall apart. No major cities were burned, no governments collapsed, and there was no mad rush to escape. People stayed where they were, staring, whispering, and waiting. It was as if somehow humanity had always known this day would come. In secret underground bases, in quiet command centers, and hidden facilities around the planet, certain groups weren't surprised. They had prepared for this for years, though even they didn't expect the entire galactic fleet to appear at once. From orbit, the aliens watched Earth closely. Their leader, a tall and elegant being known for his logic and power, stood before a large viewing screen examining the blue planet. His fleet represented the most advanced civilization in the galaxy, one that had conquered hundreds of worlds. Every planet they visited had bowed in fear or desperation, but Earth was different. On his screen, humans didn't look frightened. Their cities still glowed, their power grids remained active, and even their entertainment networks were still running. Some were filming the ships and sharing it online. Others were simply standing outside, looking up with calm curiosity. That made him uneasy. He turned to his officers, asking why the humans were not panicking. The answer didn't satisfy him. The readings showed no weapon systems being activated. No planetary defense fields, nothing. Yet the scans also couldn't penetrate deep into the planet. It was as if something powerful was interfering with their sensors. The commander didn't like mysteries. Back on Earth, the reaction was almost surreal. In one cafe, people were watching the news while sipping coffee, as if it were a movie. A child pointed at the sky and laughed, saying the ships looked pretty. A teacher told her class not to be afraid, that humanity had faced many things before, and this too would pass. No one knew if that was true. But somehow those calm words spread online, repeated again and again. Don't be afraid. As night fell, the ships began to reposition. They spread across the sky, covering almost half the visible horizon. Their presence created strange energy waves that made the air shimmer. Yet still, they didn't attack. The aliens wanted to see how humans would react. Would they beg for peace? Would they surrender? Would they try to communicate? But Earth's response was silence. Governments around the world released calm statements. They said communication attempts were being made, and that people should remain indoors and stay calm. But between those careful words, there was something else. Confidence. When the commander of the fleet saw this, he felt confused. How could a species with such primitive weapons act this way? Did they not understand the power standing above them? He ordered a global energy scan, hoping to find hidden defenses. The results made him pause. There was energy, yes, but it wasn't coming from any known weapon system. It was coming from deep underground, scattered across multiple regions of Earth. Enormous power signatures pulsed like sleeping hearts beneath the surface, slow and steady, almost alive. The readings were unlike anything his fleet had seen before. The energy didn't come from nuclear power, plasma, or antimatter. It was something older, purer, and unexplainable. He didn't know it yet, but the humans did. As the night went on, something began to change. The lights of the alien ships flickered slightly just for a moment. Their systems were being affected by something, a distortion, a pull from Earth's magnetic field. Engineers tried to adjust, but the readings made no sense. It was as though the planet itself was pushing back against their scans, quietly warning them not to go further. On Earth, people noticed the flicker in the sky. Many took it as a sign of hope. "They're not as powerful as they look," one scientist whispered in a hidden control room. Still, no one made a move. The next morning, the world awoke to an unbelievable sight. The ships were still there, but instead of moving closer, they were drifting slightly higher, as if waiting, watching, measuring. The sun's light reflected off their surfaces, creating beautiful golden streaks that reached across the sky. It should have been terrifying, but somehow it was strangely peaceful. In a small coastal city, an old man stood by the ocean, looking up with a quiet smile. He whispered to no one in particular. They finally came. Then he turned and walked away as if he had been waiting for this his whole life. Around the planet, similar scenes unfolded. People weren't running anymore. They weren't hiding. They simply stood, watched, and waited, united by something no army, no government, no religion had ever achieved before. Humanity was together. The commander of the Galactic fleet didn't understand it, but he felt it. There was something about humans that didn't fit the pattern of every other world. They were fragile yet fearless, weak yet unbroken. And that quiet strength, that calm, mysterious confidence, was more dangerous than any weapon. When one of his junior officers suggested attacking to test their defenses, he hesitated. "Not yet," he said. His voice was firm, but behind it was a flicker of doubt. "They are hiding something. I can feel it." And he was right. Far beneath the surface of Earth, deeper than any radar could reach, ancient structures began to awaken. Their walls glowed softly with the same golden hue that danced across the alien ships above. Energy lines pulsed across the ocean floor, connecting distant points like threads in a web. The people above couldn't see it. The aliens couldn't detect it. But the planet itself had begun to stir, not with violence but with quiet readiness. By the end of that day, every human on Earth had seen the fleet. Everyone had felt that strange mix of fear and awe. But when asked what they felt most, many gave the same answer: calm, and across the skies. As the stars began to shimmer again, the Galactic fleet waited for humanity to make the first move. But no one on Earth panicked. No one attacked. No one ran. They just smiled. Because somewhere deep inside they knew something the rest of the galaxy didn't. This was not humanity's first encounter. And if the fleet wanted a war, they had arrived far too late. The massive alien fleet hovered above Earth, filling the sky like a dark ocean made of metal and light. Their ships glowed faintly with energy, lined in perfect order, forming a sight both beautiful and frightening. The world below stayed silent, but not because of fear. It was the kind of silence that comes when something beyond imagination unfolds before human eyes. Inside the alien command vessel, the air felt tense. Beings from different star systems stood around glowing control panels, studying the planet that refused to behave like any other they had conquered. On countless worlds before, the same pattern had repeated: panic, surrender, desperation. But Earth was quiet, calm, still living its normal life. From their windows, they could see the flickering lights of cities, cars moving along highways, and communication signals still active. Humans were not running. They were not begging for peace. They were simply living. That calmness made the aliens uneasy. The commander of the fleet stood in silence, his long shadow stretching across the polished floor. His sharp eyes studied the planet, trying to understand what made it so different. "They know we're here," he said to his officers, his voice steady but curious. Yet they do nothing. One of his aides adjusted the scanning console. "Our systems detect no major defense fields. No planetary shields, no weaponized satellites. It's almost as if they don't care that we've arrived." The commander frowned. "No species is ever unafraid of death," he muttered. "So why are these humans smiling?" His words echoed in the chamber. For a moment, even the humming of machines seemed to quiet. Then, as if to break the silence, a soft alarm began to beep. The aide checked the monitor again. "Sir, something's interfering with our scans." The commander stepped closer. "Explain." "The readings are unstable," the aide replied. "It's not from solar radiation or magnetic storms, it's coming from the planet itself." They zoomed in on Earth's energy signatures. Beneath the surface, strange patterns pulsed. Massive networks of energy deep underground, far beyond the reach of any drilling machine. They weren't natural. They looked structured, deliberate. "Could these be hidden bases?" another officer asked. The commander shook his head slowly. "No, the power output is too balanced, too old. If humans built this, then they've hidden their true strength for longer than we can imagine." On the surface of Earth, the people went about their day. The world governments remained in close contact, but there were no signs of panic. Every military was on alert, yet no one made a move to strike. Humanity waited. In a small observatory somewhere in the mountains, a group of scientists was quietly watching the alien ships through telescopes. The youngest among them whispered, "They're watching us, but they don't understand us." The oldest one smiled faintly. "That's the point," he said softly. "They came expecting fear. What they found is patience." Above them, the aliens continued to scan the planet. Their sensors captured strange pulses from the oceans, mountains, and even the polar regions. Each time they tried to send a probe down, something happened. The probe lost connection for a few seconds, then returned with no memory of what it had recorded. It was as if Earth itself erased their data. Inside the command ship, tension grew. The commander paced slowly, his mind searching for logic. "Every time we send a probe, it vanishes for a moment," he said. "No damage, no debris, just silence." His second-in-command replied, "It's almost as if something down there is watching us back." The commander turned his gaze to the blue planet again. "Then let it watch," he said. "We'll see how long they can pretend to be unafraid." He ordered a demonstration, a small display of power. One of their ships fired a low-energy beam into the upper atmosphere, designed to show strength without causing destruction. The beam struck the sky with blinding light, scattering clouds and shaking the air. But before it reached the surface, the beam simply vanished. Gone. The control room fell silent. The commander stared at the readings in disbelief. The energy output had been absorbed completely. No reflection, no deflection, no trace of where it went. It was as if Earth had swallowed it whole. "What just happened?" one of the officers asked. The aide replied, "Our energy dissipated into nothing. The laws of physics did not apply." The commander clenched his jaw. "Then this planet is not what it seems." Down on Earth, most people didn't even know what had happened. The beam had been too high in the sky for the naked eye to see. Yet in some parts of the world, sensitive instruments detected a small fluctuation in the air, a gentle vibration that lasted only a second. It was like the planet had taken a breath and then gone still again. Somewhere deep beneath the oceans, in a place untouched by light, a faint golden glow pulsed once and faded. Days passed. The fleet stayed in orbit, growing more restless by the hour. Their scanners couldn't penetrate the oceans. Their probes returned useless, and even their communication signals began to experience faint distortion. Something about Earth's electromagnetic field was shifting, subtly but steadily. The commander spent hours studying human transmissions. He watched news broadcasts, online videos, and public messages. To his surprise, he saw laughter. He saw music. He saw people comforting one another, and even joking about the fleet in the sky. "They mock us," one officer said bitterly, but the commander shook his head. "No," he said quietly. "They understand something we don't." He couldn't explain why, but every time he looked at Earth, he felt an odd sensation, a kind of respect, or maybe fear, though he would never admit it. These humans, with their small ships and limited knowledge of the stars, had something no other civilization had shown before: quiet confidence. One evening, as the fleet orbited in perfect formation, a soft signal came from the planet. It wasn't a distress call or surrender message. It was a simple transmission, just a few seconds long. The voice that spoke was calm, human, and perfectly clear. "We see you," it said, "and we are not afraid." That was all. The aliens listened in disbelief. No threats, no demands, just a statement. A message without fear. The commander ordered the message to be replayed again and again. Every time he heard it, his confusion deepened. "They say they are not afraid," he whispered. "But no one in the galaxy has ever said that to us before." As he stared at Earth through the viewing glass, the planet seemed to shimmer faintly. It looked peaceful, but there was something in that peace that made even the most hardened warriors uneasy. On the surface, life continued. Families gathered at night to watch the strange lights above, and children drew pictures of the glowing ships. Some were afraid, yes, but most were simply curious. Humanity was learning to face the unknown not with weapons, but with understanding. In the following days, the fleet's confusion only grew. Their instruments picked up strange waves coming from deep beneath the crust, steady and rhythmic, almost like a heartbeat. Every attempt to trace them ended in failure. It was as though the planet was alive and protecting itself. The commander met with his advisors. "We have two options," he said. "We attack, or we wait." But even as he said it, he knew neither choice felt right. Something deep within him whispered that this planet was unlike any they had faced. It wasn't weak. It wasn't defenseless. It was simply waiting. Meanwhile, in a quiet corner of Earth, a group of researchers monitored strange signals coming from the ocean floor. They couldn't explain it, but it matched no known natural pattern. One of them murmured, "They think we're unprepared. Let them think that." The others nodded silently. High above, the Galactic fleet continued to float. Thousands of ships, engines glowing faintly, weapons ready but unused. From a distance, they looked like stars frozen in time. The commander stood before the viewing window once more. "Why don't they fight?" he whispered to himself. "What are they hiding?" No one answered. Only the hum of the ship filled the silence. That night, as the planet turned slowly beneath them, something changed. A faint shimmer appeared around Earth's atmosphere. A delicate, translucent light that danced like a veil. It wasn't a shield, but it wasn't natural either. The scanners couldn't identify its source. The commander narrowed his eyes. "Whatever is protecting this planet," he said, "it's not made by humans." And for the first time since arriving, he felt something he hadn't felt in centuries: uncertainty. On Earth, as people looked up at the glowing ships, they noticed the strange shimmer too. Many thought it was just the northern lights, but some understood there was more to it. The planet was responding in its own quiet way. The Galactic fleet had come expecting fear and surrender. Instead, they found silence, mystery, and a calm smile from a world that refused to kneel. And as the night deepened, both sides, human and alien, watched each other through the stars, each trying to understand the other. But one truth was becoming clear. The more the fleet tried to study Earth, the less they understood it, and somewhere deep in the darkness beneath the oceans, something ancient continued to pulse, waiting for the right moment to awaken. That was the moment the aliens began to realize the truth. They hadn't come to conquer Earth. They had come to learn what fear really meant. The sky above Earth still shimmered with the quiet presence of the alien fleet. For days, the massive ships had remained motionless like floating shadows against the stars. People had grown used to waking up and seeing those bright lines in the sky, but no one truly forgot what they meant. They were reminders that the entire galaxy was watching, waiting for Earth to break. But the humans didn't break. Cities still glowed at night. Markets opened, children went to school, people laughed, argued, worked, and lived. The fear that had once filled the air began to fade, replaced by something different: curiosity. It was as if the world had silently agreed. If this was the end, it wouldn't come with panic. It would come with calm hearts. Up in the orbiting fleet, however, confusion grew stronger each passing day. The alien commander paced inside his control chamber. The walls around him glowed with blue light, filled with shifting images of Earth. His officers whispered among themselves, unable to understand how an entire planet could remain so quiet. Every scan they ran ended the same way: interference, energy distortion, or complete blackout. "It is as if they are hiding something," said one of the aides. Every attempt to map their defenses ends in failure. They have no defenses, replied another. Their technology is primitive. They have nothing to fight us with. The commander turned sharply. Then explain their confidence, he said. Explain the calm faces, the laughter, the silence. No one answered. The room grew still. Then a faint sound broke the quiet. A signal. Not from the fleet. From Earth. The sound was simple. One tone repeating over and over, followed by silence. The pattern repeated 3 times before a soft human voice filled the command center. The voice spoke in perfect galactic standard, clear and steady. We've been expecting you, every officer froze. The words echoed through the room, followed by static, and then the signal ended. The commander stood motionless. He played the message again. The same calm voice. The same unshaken tone. They had been expecting them, but how? He ordered his technicians to trace the transmission, but the signal came from multiple sources across the planet, as if thousands of humans had spoken in unison, using the same message. The data made no sense. Down on Earth, people had gathered in public squares and rooftops looking up at the glowing ships. They didn't know who had sent the message, but when the news spread, it gave everyone the same feeling: pride. Humanity had finally spoken, and they had spoken without fear. That night, a second message came. This time it wasn't just a voice. It was an image. The Galactic fleet screens flickered, and the face of a human appeared. A single person standing on a cliff near the ocean, wind blowing gently against them. There were no soldiers, no weapons, no military uniforms, just a calm figure looking directly into the camera. Welcome, the voice said softly. You've come a long way, but you don't need to be afraid of us. The commander leaned forward. Afraid? He repeated under his breath. They think we are afraid? The human smiled slightly, a small, almost kind smile that made the entire command chamber grow cold. There was something in that expression, something that didn't fit with the weakness they had expected from Earth. It wasn't arrogance, but it wasn't submission either. It was something else, kind of quiet knowing. The message continued. Your fleets have crossed many worlds, the voice said. You've seen civilizations rise and fall. You've conquered many who resisted you. But we are not like them. Behind the human, the waves of the ocean sparkled in the sunlight. The scene was peaceful, almost too calm. We have no desire to fight, the voice continued. But understand this, we are not unprepared. And then, just like that, the transmission ended. Silence filled the alien chamber. No one spoke for several seconds. Then one of the officers turned to the commander and asked, Should we respond? The commander shook his head slowly. No, he said. Let's see what they do next. But deep inside, he was unsettled. That smile haunted him. It reminded him of something he had seen long ago. The face of a being who knew more than they revealed. The humans didn't look like a species waiting for mercy. They looked like a species guarding a secret. On Earth, the message spread everywhere. News stations played it on loop, and people gathered to watch it again and again. Some cried, others cheered, but most simply smiled. It wasn't a message of war or peace. It was a message of quiet power. In the following hours, strange events began to unfold. Several of the Galactic fleet's smaller probes stopped transmitting altogether. When the engineers checked the data, the last images the probes sent were clouds, just ordinary white clouds over the ocean. Then the signal cut off completely. The commander ordered another probe to be launched. This time, it never even reached the atmosphere. It disappeared the moment it crossed a certain height. No explosion, no trace. He stared at the readings. How can a planet absorb technology this advanced? He muttered. One of his aides hesitated. Maybe it isn't the planet, he said softly. Maybe it's something around it. The commander turned sharply. Explain. Look, the aide continued, pointing to the energy readings. These distortions, they're not random. It's almost like a field, a shield, but not mechanical. It reacts only when we try to intrude. The commander frowned. Then what is it protecting? Back on Earth, deep within secret facilities buried under mountains and oceans, lights began to flicker to life. Machines that hadn't been touched in centuries started humming quietly. Across the globe, a handful of people knew exactly what was happening. They had been waiting for this. Long ago, before humanity had even reached the stars, a signal had been received, a message from somewhere beyond known space. It had warned of a time when the Watchers would return. The world's greatest minds had spent generations preparing not for battle, but for understanding, for the moment when the galaxy would come to test Earth's strength. But the strength they had built wasn't in weapons. It was in unity, knowledge, and something far deeper, the mysterious technology hidden deep beneath their world. Meanwhile, on the alien flagship, the commander couldn't sleep. He walked to the observation deck and stared down at Earth. The planet glowed beautifully against the dark, its blue surface reflecting light from the sun. He remembered every world he had conquered before. The fear, the panic, the cries for mercy. But this world was silent, beautifully, dangerously silent. And that silence carried power. The next day, the humans sent one final transmission. It appeared on every screen aboard the alien fleet. "You came with strength," the voice said gently. "But strength isn't what rules this part of the universe." The commander clenched his fists. "Are they warning us?" The message continued. "You searched for weapons, but you'll find none. What protects us can't be seen or touched. It's older than your empires and quieter than your machines." The human smiled again. That same calm, fearless smile. "You thought we were unarmed, but we've always been ready." Then the screen went dark. Silence filled the command center. The air felt heavy, as if even the ship itself understood the message. For the first time since arriving, the commander felt something unfamiliar. Doubt. He looked at Earth again. The planet seemed to shimmer faintly, as though something deep within it was glowing. His mind raced. If this planet had truly been hiding an ancient power, perhaps their entire mission was doomed before it even began. He turned to his officers and gave a quiet command. "Hold position. No one fires. No one moves until I say so." Outside, the great fleet stayed still, forming a silent ring around the planet. From the surface, people looked up and saw the distant lights glowing softly in the night sky. To them, it felt like the stars had come closer, and somewhere deep beneath the oceans, an enormous shape stirred again. The golden lights pulsed stronger this time, like the heartbeat of the planet itself. The smile the aliens had seen wasn't arrogance. It was a warning. Humanity didn't need to raise a weapon. Their calmness was their weapon. Their patience was their shield. And as the commander of the Galactic fleet stared at the blue world below, he finally understood why the humans smiled that way. They weren't smiling because they underestimated him. They were smiling because they already knew how this story would end. The alien fleet continued to float high above Earth like an endless layer of stars. For days, their ships had stayed silent, watching, measuring, and waiting for a response that never came. Every scan they ran ended with strange interference. Every attempt to understand the planet gave them more confusion than answers. The humans had spoken only a few times, calm, polite, and without fear. And that made the aliens even more uneasy. They couldn't tell whether Earth was truly harmless or whether it was hiding something far beyond their understanding. The commander stood at the main window of his ship, looking down at the blue planet below. The light of the sun made Earth shine beautifully, but he wasn't admiring it. He was studying it like a puzzle that refused to be solved. He turned to his officers and gave a simple order. "We need to know what lies beneath that planet's surface." Within minutes, dozens of probes were launched. Small, fast machines designed to dig deep into planets and collect readings. They entered the atmosphere without resistance. Their descent looked smooth and perfect, but one by one the signals began to fade. Probe 4 has gone dark. Probe 6 too. 17 is offline. The commander's expression hardened. "How is that possible?" he asked. The communication officer replied, "Sir, they're not destroyed. They're still there, but something is blocking the signal. It's like they've entered a zone where physics itself changes." "Locate them," the commander ordered. But there was no way to locate them. The probes had vanished into a layer of silence, somewhere between the oceans and the planet's core. The readings before they disappeared showed something unbelievable. Huge structures buried deep within Earth. Perfectly circular formations, stretching for miles, pulsing with steady light. One of the science officers stared at the data and whispered, "That can't be natural. It's too precise." The commander looked at the glowing lines of data. "Then it's artificial," he said. "But who built it?" "The humans?" The officer hesitated. "If they did, then they're far more advanced than they appear. But these readings, they don't match any known form of energy. It's old, sir, very old. Maybe older than their entire civilization." The commander didn't like mysteries. He was used to having clear answers. Every world he had ever visited could be categorized, understood, and conquered. But this planet was different. It seemed to resist being understood. He gave the order to fire a low-energy test beam toward the ocean, just enough to study how the planet would react. A golden ray burst from one of the fleet's ships, cutting through the clouds and touching the water's surface. For a few seconds, everything seemed normal. Then the beam began to twist, bend, and fade until it disappeared completely. The commander stared at the screen. "What happened?" The science officer replied quietly. "The energy was absorbed. Every particle. It didn't reflect, it didn't deflect, and it was taken." "Taken by what?" the commander demanded. "We don't know, sir. But whatever it is, it's under the ocean." Below the waves, deep in the darkness where sunlight never reached, something vast began to stir. Metallic walls older than any known civilization shifted softly, releasing a ripple of light. A faint hum spread through the water like a heartbeat. On the surface, the humans couldn't see it, but they could feel it. Fishermen near coastal towns reported that the ocean had gone completely still for a few minutes, as if holding its breath. Animals behaved strangely. Birds flew inland, and the air carried an odd vibration that made people's hearts race. In one quiet control room hidden deep below a mountain, a group of scientists stared at a glowing monitor. "It's waking up," one of them said softly. The others nodded. They had known this day would come. For decades they had studied the strange signals from the ocean floor, repeating pulses that no machine on Earth could fully decode. Many believed it was just natural movement under the crust, but the truth was far greater. Earth had something living beneath it, not in the way creatures lived, but in the way machines remember. It was ancient technology, buried long before humans had learned to speak. Some said it wasn't made by humans at all. As the Galactic fleet continued to scan the planet, more readings appeared on their screens. The energy network beneath the oceans wasn't random. It connected continents, moving through mountains and deserts, linking everything like invisible veins. The commander studied the map that formed before him. This looks like a defense system," he said slowly. "But it's not active," one officer replied. "Not yet," the commander corrected. He didn't realize that, even as he spoke, those deep structures were quietly responding to his fleet's presence. Sensors hidden in rock and water were awakening, detecting the energy patterns of the alien ships. The planet was watching them back. Down below, in that dark world beneath the sea, massive rings began to rotate for the first time in thousands of years. The energy pulsing through them grew brighter. It wasn't a weapon being charged, it was a system remembering its purpose. On the surface, humans carried on with their lives. They couldn't see the changes happening below, but some could sense them in ways they couldn't explain. The air felt heavier, the ground seemed to vibrate, and the sky glowed faintly at night. Many thought it was just the reflection of the alien ships above, but others knew better. In a quiet corner of the world, an old man stood near the ocean, his feet touching the cold sand. He looked out at the horizon and whispered, "It's awake again." No one heard him. The waves crashed softly, unaware of the power sleeping below them. Up in the fleet, panic started to spread. Systems began to glitch, instruments flickered, and navigation signals became unstable. The aliens tried to recalibrate, but the interference grew stronger. "Sir, the planet's magnetic field is changing," one officer reported. "It's shifting faster than it should be able to." "How much faster?" "Thousands of times faster." "It's impossible." The commander didn't answer. He watched the planet, his eyes narrowing as the realization grew. "It's reacting to us," he said finally. The room fell silent. In the following hours, the interference became worse. Some smaller ships lost control for seconds at a time before regaining it. The crew grew restless. No one dared to attack. They had seen what happened when they tried to fire before. The planet had simply absorbed the energy. Now, it felt like Earth itself was warning them. The commander looked at the holographic projection of the planet, glowing in front of him. "They said they were not afraid," he whispered. "Now I understand why." The deeper they studied, the more questions appeared. What kind of civilization could build something this vast beneath a planet's crust? Why would it remain hidden for so long? And why did humans act as if they already knew it was there? One of the science officers turned to him and said, "Sir, we should leave. Whatever is down there isn't meant to be disturbed." The commander shook his head. "No, not yet. I need to see what happens next." And something did happen next. As the night side of Earth turned toward the fleet, the oceans began to glow faintly with soft blue light. It wasn't bright, but it was visible even from orbit. The glow spread slowly, outlining the shapes of continents and coastlines, forming patterns the aliens had never seen before. Every ship in the fleet received the same strange signal. Not a message, not a threat, but a single pulse that echoed through every system. It carried no words, only meaning. The commander's expression changed. For the first time, his eyes showed uncertainty. "It's communicating," he said. The pulse came again, this time stronger. It wasn't violent or harmful. It was almost like the heartbeat of the planet itself, steady and patient. Then, as suddenly as it had begun, the light faded. The oceans went dark again. The interference stopped. The ships stabilized. But the commander knew that something deep beneath that calm surface was now awake. Fully awake. Down on Earth, people looked up at the quiet sky and smiled again, unaware of the details but somehow understanding that the planet had just protected them in ways they couldn't see. The Galactic fleet, once confident and powerful, now hovered in silence. They had tried to test Earth's limits and ended up staring into something vast and ancient, something they could never hope to control. In that moment, the commander realized that humanity was not alone in their strength. They had allies hidden in their own world, guardians that had waited for ages, asleep until now. And as the stars reflected off the ocean's surface that night, Earth looked peaceful again. But under that peace was power, quiet, patient, and limitless. That was the unseen power beneath Earth, the reason why humans could smile while the galaxy's strongest fleet stood above them, afraid to move. The Galactic fleet had hovered above Earth for weeks. Their ships, massive and gleaming, formed perfect lines across the sky, casting shadows that stretched for miles over oceans and continents. Their commanders had watched, scanned, and tested, but the planet below had remained calm. Humanity didn't panic. They didn't flee. They didn't attack. They simply lived as if the alien fleet was just another part of the scenery. But for the aliens, calmness was the beginning of fear. The commander of the fleet paced slowly across the observation deck, his long robes brushing the polished floor. He had never encountered a world like this. Each scan, each test, each probe sent to explore Earth had failed, either absorbed by strange energy fields or completely disappearing. His officers were uneasy. Some whispered about turning back. Others begged for permission to strike, to show power. The commander shook his head. "Not yet," he said. "We need to understand what we face, and Earth was about to show them." It began subtly. First, small systems on the fleet began to glitch. Navigation systems flickered, lights dimmed, and engines stuttered as if the ships themselves were hesitating. Engineers tried to recalibrate, but the readings refused to stabilize. Something below the planet was interfering, but it wasn't random. It was precise, deliberate. "Sir," an officer said nervously, "our shields are fluctuating. The energy readings are changing rapidly. It's almost as if the planet is responding directly to us." The commander's eyes narrowed. "Then show us what it wants us to see." Before the officer could answer, a pulse ran through the fleet. It wasn't loud, violent, or destructive. It was quiet, but everywhere at once, moving through the ship's systems, their engines, and their instruments. Screens went black. Communications failed. Even the main observation windows flickered like lightning inside the glass. "What is happening?" one of the junior officers cried. "Earth is alive," the commander said slowly, his voice almost a whisper. "And it's telling us to stop." From orbit, the fleet tried to fire a small test weapon toward the surface. A beam of energy shot out from one of the capital ships, bright and cutting through the clouds. But before it could even reach the water, the beam dissolved completely. No blast, no reflection, no trace. It was as if the energy itself had been swallowed by the planet. The crew stared in shock. The planet had not attacked. It had not destroyed the weapon. It had simply erased it. The commander gripped the railing of the observation deck. "This is beyond anything we've seen," he said. "It's not a shield, it's intelligence." The systems continued to fail. Small ships spun uncontrollably for a few seconds before regaining stability. Communications between fleet sections became unreliable. Even the most advanced instruments could no longer track the hidden structures below the oceans, mountains, and deserts. Every scan returned impossible data, as if the planet itself was rewriting physics around the ships. Deep beneath the oceans, something enormous stirred. Massive metallic structures, older than any human history, glowed faintly with golden light. Rings and arches shifted slowly, and energy pulsed through the layers of the planet like the rhythm of a living heartbeat. Back on the surface, humans noticed subtle changes. The sky flickered softly at night. The ocean seemed to hum. Birds flew erratically, sensing some strange energy. Animals paused mid-step, listening to a sound only they could hear. Most humans felt only curiosity, a tingling sense that something beyond understanding was awake. In secret facilities hidden across the world, teams of scientists monitored the signals from the depths. They had predicted this moment, though none could fully explain it. Ancient technology, buried for millennia, was responding to the alien presence. It was not violent, but it was decisive. Its goal was clear: protect the planet. The alien commander watched helplessly as his fleet struggled to maintain control. His once perfectly ordered ships were now subject to forces they could not predict or manage. "What do we do?" an officer asked. The commander stared down at the planet, the blue oceans reflecting sunlight that made the glowing alien ships look fragile. "We wait," he said. "We see what it allows." And Earth allowed only observation. The next pulse came suddenly. Energy spread from the planet's core to the surface, rippling through oceans, mountains, and deserts. The alien ship's systems began to shut down in waves, one after another. Engines hummed unevenly. Communication networks flickered. Instruments displayed warnings in languages none of them could read fast enough. Then came the transmission. Not a voice, not a threat, not a plea. Just one human voice, calm, steady, and entirely unafraid. "You came with your full strength," it said simply. "Now you understand why we smiled?" The commander's eyes widened. "What did they just say?" The officer translated. They are telling us we cannot harm them. They already predicted our actions." The voice continued, echoing across the fleet. "You expected fear, but you found calm. You expected surrender, but you found patience. You expected weakness, but you found a planet alive and aware." For the first time, the commander felt doubt. His entire career had been built on conquest. Every world had bowed under his command. Every empire had feared his fleet. But Earth, this single blue planet, was proving that the galaxy had been wrong. Across the fleet, the systems continued to fail. Instruments reported false readings, engines slowed, and navigation grids collapsed. Even the most advanced ships drifted slightly off course, pulled by something invisible. "Sir," a young officer whispered, "we can't hold them in formation. Systems are failing across the fleet. We are powerless," the commander swallowed. He had never felt powerless before. "Prepare to retreat," he said finally. "We cannot risk this fleet. We leave, and we learn what we have underestimated." In that moment, the humans below had not lifted a weapon. They had not even moved. Yet their planet had acted as a guardian, a silent defender that required no orders, no leadership, no battle. It had done what humans could not. It had protected them completely, without fire, without destruction, without even confrontation. As the fleet began to retreat, the humans watched quietly from the surface. Children pointed at the distant lights in the sky. Adults whispered in disbelief, but no one cheered. They didn't need to. The lesson had been learned without a word or a blow. Deep beneath the oceans, the golden lights pulsed once more, steady and calm. The structures beneath Earth settled back into their quiet rhythm, guardians returning to sleep after fulfilling their purpose. And the humans smiled. It was not a smile of arrogance. It was not a smile of triumph. It was the smile of a species that had survived not by weapons or force, but by understanding, preparation, and the quiet strength that came from patience. The commander of the fleet looked down at the fading blue planet as his ships turned and retreated into space. He did not shout. He did not curse. He was silent, thinking about the lesson he had just learned. Strength is not always measured by weapons, and power is not always shown through attack. And somewhere deep within Earth, the Guardians pulsed faintly once more, waiting patiently for the next time they would be needed. The fleet left, shaken, humbled, and forever changed. Humanity remained untouched, quiet, and smiling, not because they had defeated a galaxy, but because they had survived it without ever needing to fight. And that was the true warning of Earth. The Galactic fleet had retreated, leaving the skies above Earth empty for the first time in weeks. The massive ships, once so intimidating and perfectly aligned, were now nothing more than distant dots drifting toward the stars. On the surface of the planet, people emerged from their homes, their eyes lifted toward the horizon, but no one shouted or celebrated. There was no need. The world had survived, and survival had never been about noise or chaos. For days, humanity moved with quiet purpose. Life returned to its rhythm, yet nothing would ever feel quite the same. There was a new awareness now, a subtle understanding that the universe was bigger, stranger, and more powerful than anyone had imagined. But humans did not feel fear. They felt respect for each other, for their planet, and for the unseen forces that had protected them. In cities and villages, people went about their routines as usual, yet a sense of connection spread. Children shared stories about the glowing ships above. Teachers discussed the strange pulses from the ocean, and scientists worked tirelessly to understand the ancient energy networks beneath the surface. Humanity was no longer just a species on a small blue planet. They were guardians of something ancient, powerful, and alive. High above, the alien fleet moved slowly through space, shaken but alive. The commanders had never encountered anything like Earth. Every plan, every calculation, every strategy they had brought from countless conquests had failed. They had expected fear, submission, or chaos. Instead, they had found calm, patience, and power beyond comprehension. The commander of the fleet, once proud and unyielding, sat quietly in the observation chamber. His eyes, usually sharp and commanding, were now thoughtful, almost humbled. "This planet, this species, they are unlike anything in the galaxy," he murmured. "We expected to teach them a lesson. Instead, we learned ours." Around him, his officers nodded silently. The lesson was clear. Earth had survived not with weapons, but with balance, understanding, and a quiet force that could not be measured by traditional means. The human race had allies in ways no one could see. Deep within the oceans, mountains, and crust of the planet, sleeping guardians had ensured survival without a single strike. On Earth, life continued, yet the world had changed in ways invisible to most people. Scientists mapped the subtle energy flows, discovering patterns connecting every continent, every ocean, every living thing. Farmers noticed that crops grew stronger and healthier in areas where the ancient energy pulsed, while cities reported subtle fluctuations that seemed to favor calm thought and clear communication. It was as if the planet itself was rewarding those who respected its balance. In coastal towns, fishermen told stories of glowing lights under the waves. Sailors spoke of moments when the ocean seemed to guide them safely through storms, as if unseen hands had steadied the waters. Children painted pictures of golden rings under the sea, shapes they had never seen but somehow felt they understood. The people of Earth did not need to speak of their victory. It was felt in the quiet confidence of daily life, in the shared understanding that the planet had protected them when the galaxy itself had threatened. They knew now that true strength came from unity, knowledge, and the ability to respect the forces beyond comprehension. In distant systems, other civilizations whispered about Earth. The story of a small blue planet that faced the most powerful fleet in the galaxy and smiled without fear spread quickly. Traders, explorers, and scholars spoke of the calm humans with awe, describing their planet as both fragile and formidable, peaceful yet impossibly strong. The Galactic fleet learned to avoid Earth for now, and other empires began to take notice. No weapon, no strategy, no army could challenge a species whose strength was rooted in balance, patience, and the hidden power beneath their feet. Earth became a symbol, not of war, but of warning. Those who approached without understanding would find not a battle, but an impenetrable calm that could undo even the most powerful fleets. Back on the planet, humans continued their work. Scientists developed new ways to study the ancient systems beneath the surface, careful not to awaken them unnecessarily. Engineers used insights from the energy flows to improve power grids and transportation, subtly guided by patterns that had existed for millennia. Communities built closer connections, realizing that their survival had depended not on individuals, but on collaboration and respect for the world around them. In the quiet forests and mountains, people felt a deeper connection to the Earth itself. Hikers and travelers often paused at rivers or cliffs, sensing the subtle hum beneath the ground. Even animals attuned to energies humans could barely perceive seemed calmer, more coordinated, and more alert to danger. The planet's guardians, though invisible, had left a lasting impression on every living thing. The alien commander, far away in the void of space, continued to study the data from Earth. Every report reminded him of the lesson learned. Strength was not just about fleets, weapons, or technology. Strength could be patience. Strength could be understanding. Strength could be invisible yet undeniable, and humans, he realized, had mastered all three. In time, the galaxy would remember Earth, not as a planet to conquer, but as a planet to respect. Every civilization that heard the story understood that some powers could not be measured, that some forces required observation, patience, and humility. And Earth would continue to smile quietly, carrying the knowledge that its guardians had protected it when the stars themselves seemed to threaten its existence. At night, the skies above Earth returned to their familiar glow of stars. The alien ships were gone, distant specks now lost in the vastness of space, but the planet itself shone brighter, not with artificial lights, but with the energy of life, balance, and ancient guardianship. Humanity walked its cities and forests with newfound confidence, understanding that they were part of something far larger, yet completely their own. The oceans, deep and shimmering, pulsed faintly with golden light, invisible to most eyes but ever present beneath the surface. Mountains and deserts hummed softly with energy that had existed for eons, flowing through the veins of the planet like a hidden heartbeat, and humans, guided by curiosity, wisdom, and patience, moved in harmony with this unseen power. No one on Earth forgot the arrival of the Galactic fleet. It was a memory etched in minds and hearts, a story told quietly among families, students, and communities. Yet it was not a story of fear or defeat. It was a story of understanding, of surviving without violence, and of respecting the hidden forces that shaped their world. Children grew up learning about the day the sky filled with alien ships. They were taught the lesson that humanity's true strength did not lie in fear, weapons, or domination. It lay in calm, unity, and the hidden power that connected them to their planet. Schools taught about energy flows beneath the ground, not as a threat but as a gift, a reminder that survival sometimes required patience rather than force. As decades passed, Earth thrived. Cities expanded with careful planning, powered by subtle insights from the ancient systems beneath. Communities learned to live in balance with the environment, guided by a deep respect for the planet that had once protected them. And the story of the Galactic fleet became a quiet legend, a reminder of what could happen when the galaxy underestimated the power of patience, wisdom, and unseen guardianship. The alien commander never forgot. Though he continued his missions, conquered worlds, and built empires, Earth remained in his mind. He knew that no fleet could ever hope to challenge it again, not because humans had the strongest weapons, but because the planet itself was alive, aware, and patiently waiting. And on Earth, humans smiled. Not out of arrogance, not out of pride, but because they understood the secret of survival. Power does not always roar. Sometimes it simply waits quietly under the surface, ready to protect those who respect it. The galaxy had been warned, and humanity had never even lifted a weapon. Earth remained a world of calm, resilience, and quiet strength. A planet that could smile at the stars and know that it was safe, because it had already mastered the true power of patience, understanding, and unity. And as the sun rose each morning, casting its golden light across oceans, mountains, and cities, the humans walked forward together, carrying a knowledge older than the stars themselves. That survival. Wisdom and courage were never measured by fear, but by the strength of the mind, the heart, and the world beneath one's feet. The universe watched, and it remembered. Earth had smiled. And the galaxy had learned.